spook easily stung.
Have you ever explored the depths of fear? Have you ever wondered what depravity dwells within the imagination of a storyteller that prompts them to exhume horrors untold and expose those horrors to unsuspecting audiences? Some are repulsed, and some are shaken. However, there are those who are invigorated. So to those demented souls, we invite you to journey inward into the dark bowels of human imagination. Press play, and you will discover what's in the podcast.
And welcome back to another edition of What's in the Podcast. And if you are listening to us today, currently as we record this, Christmas has just came and gone. But probably by the time you listen to this, we'll be under fascist rule. So hopefully, hopefully I don't, this podcast doesn't get banned by this time. So anyway, but nevertheless, at Christmas, we were blessed with something that a lot of us, well, even though the advertising campaign did a wonderful job making sure that we knew to do this on Christmas Day, we ended up being blessed with the yet another entry or another opus from the auteur Robert Eggers. The film in question today we were talking about is, of course, Nosferatu, which is another take on F.W. Murnau's classic, specifically F.W. Murnau's classic. It's not so much a remake of Dracula as Herzog's Nosferatu was, whereas this one is a straight-out remake of F.W. Murnau's original. But of course, me just talking about it alone when actually I have already done it on TikTok, I'd rather talk at length about it because you can't just talk about Robert Eggers within the span of just 10 minutes and actually do it justice. So of course, I'm going to do it in podcast form, and even more so, I'm going to have someone with me. And of course, the person in question I'm bringing is, and I think we kind of have a tradition now of doing like a big review like at the beginning of the year. It is Janie from Spooky Scary Sparkle. Or, yeah, I got that right. Yeah, Spooky Scary Sparkle or Sparkle Scary. One of those. Go for it. Tell me.
Spooky Scary Sparkle. Yeah.
Spooky Scary Sparkle. I did get
You
it right.
got it.
Okay, great. All right, wonderful. So welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
Did you go see Nosferatu on Christmas Day?
I did. I went on Christmas Day and then I went today, this afternoon.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah, I there's a little part of me thinking that at some point I do want to go see it again, just for the sake of seeing it again. Because I'm one thing as of recording, I have heard this that apparently Nosferatu did really well on Christmas Day. Like apparently it got like about $11 million on Christmas Day. So I think it's apparently the second highest grossing R-rated movie on Christmas Day.
I love that. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
I think it's fantastic. I think the other one, I didn't look at the article, but I'm pretty sure the other one might have been Django Unchained because I know Django Unchained was huge on Christmas Day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So where did you just go to a general theater for it, like the Regal or something?
It's an AMC that I went to on the first watch. Yeah, here in Brandon, which is like 45 minutes away.
Oh,
and
so
yeah, it was like it was pretty full.
Nice.
The theater was pretty, yeah.
So how was it? Was the audience like riveted by it? Was it like
Yes.
Was it good energy?
Yeah, well, because when you're now, if you're in a packed theater, you're kind of nervous because you don't know how people are going to act. But and with it being a Robert Eggers, I'm like, there are going to be some moments in this, so it could go like one of two ways, either they're really into it or they're acting stupid. But no, it was awesome. You could hear a pin drop. Everyone
beautiful.
I love when that happens. It's rare, but I love when it happens.
Yeah, we went to the Enzion, which for any fans of the pod know, I've sung praises about the Enzion. It is in Orlando. It is our local art house theater. I think it's like family owned or something like that, but it's definitely one that's supported by the arts community. But they, much to my surprise, were doing screenings of Nosferatu on Christmas Day, and I was so thrilled. It was a packed house. That made me no end of happy that even in the art house theater, people were flocking to come see Nosferatu. And even better, it was a dinner theater, so we ended up getting a good meal in at the same time. So
nice. I've always wanted to go to the Enzion.
Yeah, the Enzion is beautiful. Yeah. I've never had a bad experience there. Recently, Lynn and I they do this thing, which I love. It's called the Uncomfortable Brunch, where they will, have like lovely brunch food, but they'll show like a supremely fucked up movie.
I love that.
Yeah, the
I
last,
love
but when
that.
Lynn and I, yeah, when Lynn and I went recently, they were showing a Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer, and and even better is that they had a live Zoom session with Michael Rooker after the movie was done.
What? You know what? I
Yeah,
still have not mustered up the courage to watch that movie. I don't know
with
why.
all the crazy shit you've watched, I mean, I know you've watched Martyrs. I actually think
Yeah.
after watching Martyrs, I think you can handle Henry pretty good.
Okay.
I think you could.
Okay.
I mean, sure, yeah, sure, it's a very gritty, like down to earth movie, but I think the things that you'll be able to handle about it, firstly, is about the fact that Michael Rooker, I think you'll just be transfixed by it because of the way Michael Rooker, his performance in the film, just the character interplay. It's a film that it's a fascinating film. You for as fucked up as that film is, I never have a problem rewatching it. I think it's the same thing as when I watch Maniac, where I can watch that like no problem, just because I'm so entranced by it.
Hmm.
So I think yeah, that make that your New Year's challenge. Go watch go watch Henry, and then
I'll add it to
report
the
back on
watch
how you
list.
hell.
Okay.
Actually, if you hell, you know what? If you want to do one on that afterwards, let's do that. Um,
Yeah.
but we're not talking about that today. Today we're talking about Robert Eggers and Nosferatu. So I think to start, let's go ahead and talk about our feelings about Robert Eggers on the whole. People don't really think it, but we are living in a wonderful time. I actually think the first time since the 80s that we are living in a great time where we have these amazing horror auteur filmmakers out where when they make a movie or make anything, it always feels like an event. Like back in the days when we had like Wes Craven, John Carpenter, George Romero, and all them. Now we have people like Ari Aster, Mike
Hmm.
Flanagan. Um, Personally, now I will jump at anything Coralie Farge makes. But Robert Eggers is another one that was kind of like at the forefront of that new movement. I mean, when he busted out with The Witch. So,
Hmm.
what was The Witch your first brush with Eggers?
Yes. Yes, it was. Hmm.
Mm.
Yeah, and I loved it. Now the first, it's funny because the first time I watched The Witch, it was like, okay, but the second time I watched it at home and it just hit different.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I was pretty much immediately in love with The Witch when I saw it because, well, first off, I've always wanted to do The Crucible. Like that's a play I've always wanted to perform in, like so badly. I got this close, but timing. But I love portray like films that take place in that time period just because I'm always intrigued to see what they do with it. But knowing that Robert Eggers, and I ended up watching it because The Lighthouse was coming out, and I was like, well, I didn't see The Witch, so I jumped on it. I was immediately transfixed by that, and the fact that they up front said that that the dialogue in this movie is taken from actual journals from that time period. Immediately that told me, oh, this guy's serious. And
Yeah.
even to know that that movie was made with natural lighting, like apparently there was like no artificial lighting on that set, that they relied entirely on natural lighting to make that
Wow.
movie. That told me that this is a guy who is obsessed with uh, an organic, authentic experience. So, I mean, was that your takeaway when you watched that?
Oh yeah. Yeah, for sure. And now after seeing like his other movies, I'm like, just please never stop making these period pieces because he's amazing at it. And I read an interview, I can't remember who it was with. Was it Variety? It was one of those. And he was talking about how, he feels like he does that well. So he's leaning into that. I'm like,
Hmm.
yes. So
I
hopefully we'll
wouldn't
get
mind.
more of that.
Yeah, I wouldn't. You know what? I wouldn't mind seeing him do something in the Old West.
That would be great.
That would be kind of cool.
Yeah.
You know, like actually like do a indigenous revenge movie, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like I don't know, like Bone Tomahawk or The Nightingale or something like that.
Oh, yeah. I'm
That'd
thinking
be
Bone Tomahawk. That would be
Yeah, that'd be kind of
amazing.
wild if he tried
Yeah,
that.
it
I think he
would.
should do it.
Yeah.
But then but yeah, when I saw The Lighthouse, I mean that movie's a trip. I mean, when I watched it again with Lynn down the line, I was like, this movie's just a wild mind trip. But whenever I describe it to people, I going, think of it as probably the most extreme case of what happens when you're stuck with a coworker you hate for months.
Okay, so I have a confession to make. I
Uh-huh.
love Robert Eggers, and I've seen The Northman, The Witch. I have not seen The Lighthouse. And
Ah.
we were going to come home. And in fact, we're going to watch it probably when I get done here because it's the one movie by him that I have not
Yeah.
seen.
Okay, so okay, go ahead and walk in with that mindset. It's like, yeah, it's the idea of the isolation, and then he does a
Okay.
great job really selling the isolation of these two men who are drastically polar opposite personalities, who very clearly have to learn to live with each other. But there's the idea of one person isn't really telling the other about, about who they are and can they trust the other. But even more so, it's just the fact that these two people, when it comes to their living habits, clash completely. And it's just the isolation. I mean, Robert Eggers really, and even better is that he films the film in a very reduced aspect ratio. And because of that, you really do feel the suffocating claustrophobia of the isolation of being stuck on this island. And the only other person you have to talk to is this flatulent, seasoned wiki, as they're called there. But it's so wild. And Willem Dafoe and Robert Pattinson just commit 100% to it. It's a trippy movie. I think it's easily Robert Eggers' most trippy movie.
Okay.
Um, but then after that we did The Northman. Now, the only reason I haven't really talked about that in the same breath as others because I don't. Do you? I mean, I suppose you can call The Northman horror adjacent. I mean, would you agree with that?
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. Horror adjacent, but the least horror
Hmm.
movie
I
of
even
his.
I even was told now, apparently Shakespeare's Hamlet, apparently that is a actually an adaptation of a Nordic tale. And The Northman is the adaptation of that tale that inspired Hamlet.
I'm seeing it now. Okay.
Yeah, and actually I remember when I went to go see the movie, I had that in my head.
Mm,
So when certain plot revelations occurred, it didn't surprise me in the least because I'm like, oh my God, this is Hamlet.
hmm
This is absolutely Hamlet. And I'm except it has a insanely sexy lava side naked sword fight at the end. Nosferatu was Robert Eggers' passion piece. Like this is something he's been wanting to make even before like anything else. He's been wanting to make this movie for
mm.
ages. Back in high school, he even did a stage adaptation of it. He actually directed a stage adaptation of it.
In high school.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
Firstly, I just want to see him direct for stage because one thing I know is that horror on film is great, but horror on the stage is a visceral experience altogether. And I would love to see a stage play directed by Robert Eggers.
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
Hmm. But yeah, he's loved Nosferatu for the longest time. So this is the culmination of just everything he's been begging for, for the longest time. And it does make me happy when a passion piece comes to fruition, but thus far been received as well as it has. So I suppose it's redundant given the fact that Nosferatu is one of the oldest living horror films to date. But go ahead and give us a very brief synopsis of Nosferatu.
This synopsis that I came up with is a synopsis like a keeping it real synopsis, which was a creepy vampire scam. See, I was ready for this. A creepy vampire scams a real estate agent into signing his marriage away and brings plague and death on an innocent town, all because he has a past and obsession with said real estate agent's wife and is unable to let go.
That was amazing. And I think from here on in, anyone who comes on the show, I'm going to warn you, you're going to do a synopsis and I'm going to get them to prep it because that was wonderful.
I was like, oh, I got to get my synopsis ready. And
Yes,
bam, there
you
we go.
knew. You knew.
I was ready.
So you were ready for it, and I am here for it, and I appreciate it completely. And this is the joys of doing this show, and I'm so happy. We're kicking the year off right. Yeah, all right. So, um, I suppose before we even get into the intricacies of this movie, let's go ahead and talk about our feelings on the original. Have you ever seen the original Nosferatu?
I have seen some of it, but it's been so long that it's one I need to revisit. And I didn't
Yeah.
see the 1970 whatever the
Mm. The Werner Herzog version.
right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which I do recommend. Actually, what was kind of cool, Joe Bob Briggs during I want to say the fourth season, for his night, he did a double feature. He did the original Nosferatu, and he did the Herzog's 1979 version. Now, for entertainment value, I'd say between the two, I would definitely say I'll watch Herzog's version more,
Okay.
principally because I hate Klaus Kinski as a person, but so he's wonderful in the vampire role. But what's fascinating is that Herzog's version is Dracula. They call him Dracula. Everyone is Jonathan Harker, everything like that. In a way, it's the movie that F.W. Murnau wanted to do, but because, of course, he could not get the rights to Dracula, wasn't allowed to do. So for those unaware, now, actually, it's a big, beautiful thing we should talk about because Nosferatu, that film is now currently 102 years old. And it is 102 years old and it is still going strong to this very day. The iconography is so powerful and so potent on that and even just to a level that it's immediately recognizable, even to the point where SpongeBob has him as a fixture.
Yep.
And funny enough, apparently that was where Robert Eggers first heard of Nosferatu, was on SpongeBob.
What?
Yeah.
That's
Apparently.
crazy.
Don't quote me, but yeah.
Okay.
But I believe it though. So, but the idea that the imagery, the iconography of this silent film from 102 years ago resonates throughout the decades and has even shown up in the weirdest of spots and is still in transfixing people to the point where we get the opus that we have today. I think it says a lot. Obviously, the fact that it has not fallen into obscurity is a really big freaking deal. And the fact that Nosferatu is still as beloved as it is to this very day, I think and I find it funny for everyone, for all the critics out there who keep saying like, oh, fuck horror. Horror is like, it's trash, it's garbage. I find it funny that one of the most popular films that still survives this very day is a horror film. So fuck off with that shit.
That's right.
Hell yeah. I suppose the other thing we should probably get into is the history. Now, the reason why Nosferatu was what it was because F.W. Murnau could not score the rights to the original book of Dracula and decided, well, we'll just swap names and we'll just swap locations and just make it our own thing. But unfortunately, it was basically the story of Dracula. And Francis Stoker was so angry. The estate of Bram Stoker and his wife, or I think his living descendants, were so mad that they tried to destroy every copy of F.W. Murnau's film. Fortunately, it did survive. And now we have, thanks to Joe Bob, we have the wonderful hashtag fuck Francis Stoker.
It wasn't really something I was totally interested in. But when I found out that Robert Eggers was going to do Nosferatu, then I was like, oh, hell yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm kind of new to this whole, like, I mean, I know the things about like with the copyright and them trying to, and it's funny because there are people commenting on videos, it's basically a ripoff of Dracula. Well, yeah.
Yeah. And as history has shown, it doesn't really matter because what F.W. Murnau did was so unique that it didn't matter anyway because the iconography of Nosferatu has resonated to the point where a lot of later adaptations of Dracula decide to emulate Nosferatu as opposed to Bela Lugosi. I mean, a good example was recently The Last Voyage of the Demeter. The look of Dracula was very much more inspired by Count Orlok as opposed to Count Dracula, even though it is Dracula.
Right.
I never actually asked you, but what's your take on remakes? Like, how do you feel on the subject of remakes?
I'm good with remakes. Honestly, I'm always good with, and I try not to compare too much. So when it comes to remakes, I'm pretty open-minded. I mean, it's got to be really bad for me to not be into a remake. Like the Strangers remake, so many people hated it. I was fine with it. I'm very forgiving when it comes to remakes.
Yeah. And that's a good attitude to have. My attitude is if you're going to do something, if you need to do something to justify why you're doing it, you have to simply say, I've got this take, which I really want to do, so I'm going to do it. I mean, that's why, famously, of course, the horror holy trinity of remakes is The Fly, The Thing, The Blob. And those worked because you had three filmmakers who injected something new into a familiar story. So yeah, and I think that was the important thing. So in the case of Robert Eggers, I think the major thing he added, well, dialogue for one, because it's not a silent film, but I feel like he injected, well, first off, he injected real exploration of, well, exploration of character, but also I feel like he injected a lot more. I think he leaned a lot harder into metaphors into this one in terms of what Count Orlok represented, not just to our main characters, but to the world as a whole. So, I mean, how do you feel about that?
Oh, I agree. And there's definitely more commentary. Like, I can't get this out of my head when oh, who was it? Friedrich, when Ellen was talking to Friedrich, and he tells her basically like, remember your place, woman, that kind of
Mm,
thing. Just little like nuances like that that you don't really
yeah,
think about, but yeah. Or
yeah,
how they were seeing her as like a nuisance because of her hysterics, being a
yeah.
woman. You know what I mean? Just things like that.
Yeah, actually, that's a wonderful point because one thing they add here, which is definitely not in the original silent film, is the idea that Ellen, played by Lily Rose Depp, has a history with Count Orlok where she was transfixed by him. She thought he was just this weird entity that awakened her in ways she wasn't ready to confront as a girl, as a young girl, and then coming as to a woman. And everyone just chalked it up to her just being, being, oh, silly woman,
Mhm.
being all womanly with her weird fascinations.
With her melancholy, as they said.
Yeah, with her melancholy, as opposed to
Yeah.
what we would now call today fucking depression, people.
Yeah.
Dude, let's go ahead and just talk about Lily Rose Depp. Let's just go ahead and talk about her because I know everyone, that's the big thing of the positive responses movies been getting. A lot of it's been revolving around her. Yeah, so I mean, have you ever seen her? This is my first time actually ever seeing her in anything.
Okay, so I watched The Idol, that
Hmm.
trashy HBO show with her in the weekend. And it was yeah, the summer before last. And she like I could see the talent bubbling
Hmm.
up, with all those trashy scenes and all. Um,
Now
but
yeah, the only
yeah,
thing
I
I
I
knew,
watched her in
yeah.
that.
Yeah, the only thing I knew her from was Yoga Hosers, which I
Yoga
had not seen
hosers.
Yoga Hosers. I just knew, oh shit, Johnny Depp as a kid, and apparently she's an actress too. I'm still
Yeah,
not going to
same. I
watch the
haven't seen
movie,
that one
but
either. Yeah.
I haven't seen it either. That's okay. No one saw Yoga Hosers, but but and, and apparently no one needs to watch Yoga Hosers. Even Kevin Smith says don't watch Yoga Hosers, and his daughter is one of the leads in it.
Yeah.
So it's like when so. But I didn't know. But and it's one of those things where you don't really think you're going to see her again afterwards. But I have a sneaking suspicion we're going to see plenty of her after this one because I one thing I wasn't expecting with this one is that I didn't think we were gonna get some body horror out of this sucker.
It was
I
it was
suppose
crazy. Like her
yeah,
scenes. And the whole time I just kept thinking, okay, how does Johnny Depp feel watching this? Because I would not watch it next to my dad with all those scenes that she had. They were crazy. I mean, yeah.
yeah. But then again, I'm sure she may have watched like a lot of his messed up fare. So I think it's safe to say I think she wouldn't have a problem. Or
Yeah,
well, then again, I mean, there is that thing of a parent like going, I don't need to see my daughter's tits.
exactly. I don't need to see her like possessed slash like air humping. You know what I mean? It was just,
That could
yeah,
be awkward too, but
yeah, yeah,
at the same time though, I can imagine there would still be a sense of pride by virtue of the fact that Lily Rose Depp is freaking talented. Holy shit.
yeah,
And
yeah. I didn't
interestingly
know she
enough,
had that in her
yeah,
to that
well, the fact that
extent.
she commits 100% on her physical performance, and most of the times I jumped in the movie was times when she did these seemingly unnatural convulsions. Like there's
Mhm.
one part where she just goes into a full arc, like devil inside me kind of arc, or last exorcism kind of arc, where she was like ah, kind of thing, and
Uh-huh.
it comes so far out of left field. I did not see that coming out, so that made me jump like crazy. And there's this one part where she extends her tongue
Yes. And her
outward.
eyes roll back.
Yeah, and she's having this big fit, and I'm like going, like tuck that back in, tuck that tongue back in. I was terrified she was gonna bite down and that tongue was
Oh
coming
yeah.
off,
And she
which
was
I still like.
drooling everywhere. That was
Yeah,
crazy.
I was like, this is a, it's like I'm there's a little part of me happy she missed out doing an exorcism film, because otherwise she would have given it all in one of those and we wouldn't have got that here. But because, and I was kind of surprised that this film actually was in a way kind of a possession film in that regard as well. Um, I suppose the big thing I mean, typically, and I actually had a big, I don't know if you saw it, but recently, me and my friend JT had a wonderful talk about vampires and kind of talking about the sexual side of them, just how they're kind of like desirable and how there's a kind of like forbidden fruit idea that makes them alluring. Um, there was a big reason why Bill Skarsgård was cast in this part because, well, I mean, if you watch him a Boy Kills World, that guy's freaking ripped and he's like under without makeup. He's, you know, he can get that. But a lot of it was because in order to, and apparently Robert Eggers said, in order to tackle a lot of the sexual themes that he intended to tackle with this, we had to believe that Count Orlok had like an allure about him that made him, that would make someone feel the feelings that Ellen has during the course of the movie.
I know that I'm kind of new to this Nosferatu thing, but wasn't the thing with Nosferatu to make him like not sexy in the original? Is that what they were going for instead of the whole sexy vampire thing?
Honestly, the whole sexy vampire thing really didn't come into play until Bela Lugosi came into play. I think, and it's been a while since I've read the passages in Bram Stoker's original, but I even recall that the original book also did not describe Dracula in a flattering light. Like he was not the Lothario as portrayed by a lot by Lugosi onward. You
And
know,
Gary Oldman.
uh, certain modes of Oldman, he can definitely like he's definitely a panty dropper. I mean, my thoughts, of course, is Christopher Lee because you know Christopher Lee
Yeah.
can definitely, but there's a memory that serves that I think Dracula really was more in the book. I think it was more like Count Orlok versus the Dracula that we know.
Okay.
So I think Coppola's film was kind of a compromise in a way where he was portraying Dracula in two opposing ways, just for the sake of being loyal to the book, but also being loyal to the legacy of Dracula at the same time. So, I mean, in this case, you know, we have Count Orlok, yeah, the emaciated vampire as he is, but this time he's got himself a big old Vlad the Impaler mustache
Yeah.
going
Yeah.
on. Oh, by the way, spoilers, people, but yeah, he's one thing I was not expecting was going to have a big old Cossack porn stash.
Yeah.
Was
Yeah.
not expecting that.
I read in that interview with Robert Eggers, and he was like, every self-respecting Transylvanian aristocrat would have had a mustache, a porn stash, I guess.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, we joke it's a porn stash, but
Yeah. But yeah.
yeah, and actually that mustache is kind of a point of contention for me because on one side I'm like, I'm not sure I'm loving it, but I know, knowing Robert Eggers, I know that nothing he does is gratuitous and that every choice he makes has a purpose.
Intentional,
So
yes.
yeah, and actually when we were driving home, Lynn even pointed out, oh, well, it's like, you know, the portraits of Vlad the Impaler, who many people have said inspired Dracula, who did have a big mustache like that.
Mhm.
So it stands to reason that this version of Count Orlok is meant to be to resurrect that image of Vlad the Impaler. So when they made that observation, I was like, you know what? All right, I'll take it. But even more so, actually, I'm really thanking you for telling me about that Eggers said that.
Mhm.
Just the idea that it's more regionally accurate, that especially the aristocracy would have a great big bushy stash.
Yes.
Yeah,
And that it was.
it really was. Admittedly, trying to resist the urge to make a mustache right joke. If you listen to my Friday 13th commentary, I already did a bunch of them in relation to Steve Christie, so I'm trying to resist. I'm trying to resist. I'm trying to behave. That's my New Year's resolution. No mustache ride joke. Take us through how you felt in terms of the fear factor of Count Orlok throughout the course of the movie. I mean, what were you feeling when it came to like the scenes, especially like, all the scenes with Ellen and the way he was kind of like imprinting himself on her?
I think I was just so taken by the imagery. So I'm like, okay, you know, the kid that gets like really into the shiny things.
Mhm.
I think the imagery is what did it for me. And then when, as far as like scary, I don't know. Ellen was really good. Lily Rose Depp. But when Nicholas Holt was in that castle, that's when it
Mm.
like I started to feel more of the fear. Because his
Yeah.
performance, I'm like, this poor guy's gonna have a heart attack
Yeah.
talking to this guy. And I was thinking about Gary Oldman and Dracula, and I'm like, well, he was a little bit nicer to Keanu when he was there, but like, man, Orlok's kind of an asshole,
Oh yeah, he's
when he has,
nasty to Thomas.
yeah. But
Yeah. Oh,
yeah, that's when I started to feel more of the fear, was when Thomas was at the castle.
there is something to be said for somebody who walks into the spider's web. It's like you don't know how they're going to come out the other end. And since we're on the subject, can we observe the hilarious irony that it's 2 years running, and Nicholas Holt is in a movie where he plays someone who goes to the vampire's castle to make a real estate deal
I love that.
and becomes the vampire's bitch?
Nicholas Holt being typecast as
I
a vampire's bitch.
Yeah, but hey, given the nature of both movies, they did
It's
something
working for
different
him.
with. Oh
Yep,
my
it's
God.
working.
I love Renfield. Renfield is I freaking love that movie so hard. But actually, no, Nicholas Holt, he's an actor who I remember the first time I saw him was About a Boy. And that was like his big breakout. It was this I don't know if you've ever saw it, but it was a sweet comedy that he did adapted from the book by Nick Hornby. It was a film starring Hugh Grant. And he was just a little kid who was like his co-lead in that. And he had this little elfish kind of look on his face. He was a little elf when he was a tiny
Oh,
kid. He was
Hugh
adorable.
Grant. Wow, that's funny
I
because
recommend it. It's a great damn movie. I mean, I think it's one of Hugh Grant's best performances. I say
Hugh
that
Grant's
because this
having a moment right now with
oh my God, his performance in
Heretic.
Heretic.
Yeah,
Damn,
yeah.
his performance in Heretic was through the roof. Oh, that and Paddington 2. Hugh Grant is fine. When I saw him as a little kid with holding his own with Hugh Grant, I'm like,
Mhm.
this kid's gonna do stuff. He is gonna do stuff. And lo and behold, man, that kid, he has a legendary career, man. He is doing incredible work. So,
I just saw Juror number 2 with him.
oh really?
Yeah, yeah. That
Oh,
was really, I
ex
really, really enjoyed that movie too.
excellent. Excellent. I mean, and it's so many times you have to actually, and I'm always a big fan of the actors where you have to tell people, remind people, that's that guy.
Hmm.
And they lose their shit going, holy shit, that's him. Like so many times I have to remind people, that's Nux from Fury Road.
Oh
And they
yeah.
go like, oh my God, he was just an adorable little apocalyptic puppy.
Oh, and then going to see Nosferatu, we're like, that's kick ass. Aaron
Oh
Taylor
yeah, we
Johnson.
had
Yeah, that's kick
Aaron Taylor
ass. Yeah,
Johnson.
I
Yeah,
love that. Bullet
we have to say
Train.
that's kick. Yeah, oh yeah, I still need to watch Bullet Train, but yeah, I
Oh,
mean, well, I'm
okay.
pretty sure no one's gonna say, "Oh, look, that's Craven the Hunter."
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
no.
no one's gonna
I
say
need to.
that.
Have you seen that? Did you go see
I have
that?
not. I
Okay.
have not. I have literally no interest in any of these. Well, except for Venom. I do get a kick out of the Venom movies, but I had no interest in what Sony's doing right now
Oh, and he's
with
going to be in
with
28 years later too. Oh, I'm so
yes.
excited for that
Oh
one.
my God. I was able to find that creepy ass music that plays or that poem that plays in the trailer. I was able to find it
The
and
poem. Okay.
it's now actually on my iTunes. People have actually said try listening to that without going insane and I'm like going, hell, I'm actually singing along with it actually. Then again, I think I may be insane already, so, but yeah, no, Aaron Taylor Johnson, that yeah, you're right. He started off with Kick Ass and came from there. And I remember in Kick-Ass, he was like this spindly, skinny little person. But then when you get to
Hmm.
Kick-Ass 2, and he freaking jacked himself up. And now,
Yeah. Yeah. Look at Kick
though,
Ass go.
yeah. And since we're talking about Harding, Anna, and the family, when I saw the trailer for Nosferatu and I saw the two kids screaming, and I was like going, first off, I loved when you actually watch the movie and see the context of the scene. That's funny. But even then, I was still watching them going, you're in a goddamn Robert Eggers movie. You're fucked.
No one is safe. Yeah, children. Sorry, I keep thinking of
Yeah.
Mercy and Jonas from the
Yeah,
Witch.
from The Witch. Yeah. I mean, granted,
Yeah.
those little shits in the witch, man, I was waiting for them to
Oh, they were
get theirs, but
assholes.
they
Yeah.
were assholes. So I was waiting for Black Phillip to take them, but
Yeah.
these kids were innocent. You know,
They were.
they were sweet, scared little kids. But yeah,
With
but
their little
again, that's
proper British voices. I love
yeah,
listening to
little.
them talk.
Yeah, these sweet little moppets. Yeah, and I
Yes.
will say, and most horror movies will off-screen them to death, you know, just because they don't want to. But the whole part where they come in and there's Count
Mhm.
Orlok with two, sucking on their necks like two little blood-filled My Buddy dolls. And
Yep. And just throws him down when he's done.
oh,
Yeah.
oh man, that's good. That's so, again, credo of our podcast, threaten the kids and you got yourself some steaks. I'm gonna have to do a whole episode on that. In the original Nosferatu, there is no Van Helsing character. Now, granted, he's not called Van Helsing here. There is no Van Helsing character in the original Nosferatu.
Really? Okay.
No, actually, I think there's Dr. Silvers, who here is played by Ralph Ineson, who is actually a Robert Eggers regular. He played the father in The Witch.
That's right.
Yeah, but here he is.
That voice, that really deep voice
Oh,
that he
I love
has.
Ralph Ineson. Actually, recently he also did an amazing performance in The First Omen, playing
Yes,
Father
he
Brennan.
did. Yes, he did.
Yeah. Oh man, and apparently he got cast as Galactus in the Fantastic Four movie, which I'm like, fuck yes, that voice coming out of Galactus.
Nice. I
That's
love
gonna
that
be.
dude.
I love him. It always makes me happy when they cast like odd looking. I think that's the other reason why The Witch is so good. They cast actors who are the unconventional look that usually tends to be associated with like Hollywood looking actors. And I'm looking at him like going, I believe that this guy, they cast authentically. And Ralph
Yes.
Ineson is that um, wonderful actor who really doesn't abide by the traditional Hollywood standards when it comes to a leading man. But it just always makes me happy whenever I see him turn up. And I've never known him to churn out the same performance anytime I've ever seen him. And this one
Oh
is
yeah.
definitely no exception. So I think the one thing they lean harder into in this one, I mean, they allude to it in the original film, but this one they lean harder into the idea of when Orlok arrives, the idea that his arrival heralds a plague. Now, the other one they kind of use it as a metaphorical thing that Orlok coming, is like a plague. But this time they found balls out saying, no, with him comes death at every turn.
Yeah.
That's not even just Orlok coming in, like biting everybody, sucking them dry. No, fucking rats.
Rats. Oh God, the rats. Ugh.
I think this movie actually reminded us why rats are like dangerous creatures. And during that time, I want to say it was during this time period, well, I know in 1666 there was a plague that hit, and a lot of it was rats. But when people and I suppose the aversion people have to rat. I mean, how are you on rats like on the whole?
Rats freaking terrify me.
Really?
Oh my gosh. Okay, so see, I have childhood trauma when it comes to rats. I remember staying at my aunt and uncle's house, and my parents had gone out for the night. So we spent the night, my brother and I spent the night there, and they had like rats in their home. And I remember we were sleeping on the floor, like on a mattress, and then they would
Mm.
leave the night light on. So I would just like hear them and feel them like scurry next to me. And then can you imagine the shadows that were made
Oh
when there's a
yeah.
nightlight? I was terrified. I have this
Mm.
thing with rats. Oh my gosh. Oh, that was
Oh.
mm-mm.
Yeah, I'm on the complete opposite end because well, I mean, I had hamsters, but I had friends who actually kept rats as pets. And apparently rats, and actually they let me hold them, and it was very sweet and just very fuzzy and just very, you know, just liked just hold them in your hands and you're just want to pet them. They're just really sweet. They're just jumbo mice to me. And I used to keep mice too, and mice are sweet. But
Even at that, like when they went in to look in the sarcophagus for Count Orlok and the rats were
mm,
everywhere. Like ever since I got my little dog, anything with animals, so you can imagine how I was with that bird scene, by the way.
Oh,
Yeah, I could
oh,
not look. Yeah. So when they went in there,
man.
even as much as like I'm scared of rats, I'm like, oh God, please don't set these rats on fire. Like, please don't hurt them at the same time, even though I'm afraid of them. Like, no, don't hurt any animals. I had been warned about the bird.
Yeah,
Yeah.
one day I do need to do an episode just strictly focusing on animals in horror. But oh, actually, now people wonder about me, like going, is there anything that phases me? Like anything that actually makes me that I will still wince just when I think about it. I won't so much wince, but the one thing that will make me go that affects me is when I see things ingested that just should never be ingested. Like so
Okay.
whenever I see someone like I know one day I need to watch Pink Flamingos, but
Oh God, no.
I don't know
I
if I'll ever be able to handle watching Divine actually eat dog shit. Uh, but that moment where he bites and oh, the way they stage it is so good. But the way Knock like starts, he has the pigeon poised to his net to his mouth, and he's like kissing it, and I'm like,
Mhm.
Eggers knows that this pigeon is not long for this world, and he is teasing us. And I love that they even put that a little bit of that in the trailer, like right when he's about to put his mouth on it. And I was like, man, you know damn well that this pigeon is going to die in this moment. But even with me knowing that this was coming, the second I see that pigeon's head go in his mouth and he bites it off,
Oh,
I will say now, just I go, ah, ah. I like, for example, like when I watched Dead Alive, the whole custard scene and mom eating her own ear, that part just me, or even Audition with the
oh
feeding the
God.
slave the vomit. Whenever
Yes.
that's the stuff that will get me is like when I see someone ingesting something that's just not meant to be ingested, I will go,
Okay.
ah.
So did you ever see the movie Swallow?
No, and there's a reason why.
Okay, I made it through like half of that movie.
Oh no, I know. See, I see the one thing about me, which I'm very happy about being me, I know at some point I will have to pull the trigger on these movies.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be happy that I watched them because I'll feel stronger having coming out the other end. But this moment in Nosferatu, watching him bite the head on that off that pigeon, first off, it's gorgeously staged. The actor.
Okay, I just had a great idea. When you do, if TikTok survives, you need to do reaction videos when you watch something like Swallow.
Oh, I will. You know what? And I reserve the times when I do reaction videos for those times when I know I'm going to watch a movie where I'm going to have good reactions to them. No,
Mhm.
and I thank you completely for this because you inspired me to do the ones I did. Like
Oh, yay.
I love my reaction video to the coffee table.
Still
That made
haven't watched that one either.
Oh my God, the coffee table is ridiculous. Well,
Okay.
the beautiful thing about that movie is that it's a full-blown exercise in playing with your dread, just your dread. It's like finding out the most horrific thing happens very early in the movie, but it plays with your dread because you know the backlash is coming.
Okay.
It
Okay, I need to
plays with
watch it.
you. I
I
recommend it.
know what happens, so knowing that, I should just go ahead and watch it.
Yeah. And you know what? They film it in a wonderful way that they do a great job filming it in a way that still has impact, but doesn't make it gratuitous. Like basically doesn't make it actually not gratuitous, exploitative. They don't make it
Okay.
in a way that it's like, oh, this is for the gore hounds. No, they do it in a way that just hits home the shock value of it, but doesn't make it exploitative. They orchestrate it perfectly.
Okay.
It's an amazing film. I love the film. It's a great movie.
Okay.
So
So you think I can handle it?
I actually think you could. And honestly, I
Okay.
think you'll actually find yourself laughing a lot because you'll just be going like, what, how the, because for anyone who has ever held a secret for as long as they have, and they think that holding the secret is going to make things okay, it's like, you know, deep down, holding a secret is going to make shit worse. And you know how long the movie goes. You're just like, this shit is going, when when the inevitability hits, it is going to get worse and worse and worse and worse. And then when it finally explodes, it goes about as bad as you could pretty much imagine it's going to go.
Okay.
That's our capsule review of the coffee table, ladies and gentlemen. Let's get back to oh, so back to Nosferatu.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, where were we? What movie were we on?
We're talking about Nosferatu here. Sorry about that, everybody. But yeah, as I was going back to talking about, yeah, there's no Van Helsing character in this movie. There is well, they pretty much created that specifically for this movie, and that's where we get Willem Dafoe, who is now in his third collaboration with Robert Eggers. Which I'm going to ask you this: what's your opinion on when directors have like their mainstay actors? How do you feel on that?
I was gonna say, I love when they do that. I mean, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. If it works, I love that. I love that when they have their like Mike Flanagan. I
Oh
love when
yeah.
they have their
Oh yeah.
their actors
Oh
that they
yeah.
yeah.
Mike Flanagan. Actually, Christopher Nolan is another guy who does that, where he has like a whole entourage of actors who he's worked with like multiple times.
Mhm.
I I don't know if you know this about me, but I'm a regular at the Orlando Fringe Festival, and I've worked with the same troupe like so many times with the same people. It's that idea of like I always believe like when an actor appears in a director's films multiple times, that means they just love working together.
Mhm.
That just means that this is a director who obviously loves that these actors love working with so much that they just want to keep. That's why I love Wes Anderson movies, and that's why I just keep loving the same entourage of actors who I know I've seen in prior Wes Anderson films. I love seeing them pop up in these because I also love it because the director will prioritize challenging, showing what that actor can do. Because I
Yeah.
guarantee it's never the same. Bill Murray in Wes Anderson films, he's not playing the same character that he plays in any other Wes Anderson movie. Same thing goes here with Robert Eggers with Willem Dafoe. When you finally do watch The Lighthouse, I swear to God, Thomas in The Lighthouse, man, I think that may be like the most Willem Dafoe. I don't. That's the most Willem Dafoeiest Dafoe that has ever Dafoed. It's like that role was like I can't even. I think God, if there is, brought down Willem Dafoe, set up that he will be a successful actor specifically so he could play that role in The Lighthouse.
The Lighthouse. Okay.
Yeah, because literally Willem Dafoe. And I will never look at Lobster the same way again after hearing Willem Dafoe go, "But you like me, Lobster?"
Okay, so that just went up on my watch list.
Oh yeah. Now, since we're on this tangent, let's go ahead and talk about Robert Eggers in terms of his craft. I mean, when it comes to the scare factor, what do you think, or just when it comes to what he brings to the horror genre, when it comes to a scene that makes you uncomfortable, what do you think it is that he brings that makes his films unique apart from like a lot of his other peers? Like especially when you think about films like The Witch.
I think like how into the period pieces that he makes, like the authenticity to the movies and the commitment that he makes to those. And also, did you notice that he does kind of sprinkle in that humor? Like, did you
Hmm.
find any of the moments
Yeah.
in Nosferatu that way? Like, or maybe it's just my twisted sense of humor. Like when when Emma, I mean not Emma, Ellen, Lily Rose Depp, when Willem Dafoe said, you know, she's in another realm, and was it the knife that they drove through her hand?
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Oh
Friedrich
man.
Friedrich is like, I protest, you know, with his like, I don't, there were just moments in the movie. I'm like, okay, is it me or does he put those subtle bits of humor in his movies?
Yeah. And I have a feeling like when I watch it again, and I will watch it again, when I watch that scene, I'm gonna laugh more than I did when I initially watched it because I was in when you're at the end zone, I will say you are surrounded by more art housey kind of crowd.
Mm,
But I was hearing people going, "Ew, oh, ah," he's doing that. But me, I'm like going, holy shit, she really is under it, isn't she?
yeah.
But again, that's me as a horror fan. So I'm like thinking like when someone does that shit, that means that this person is so far gone that they're not going to register that shit. But yeah, you're
Yeah.
right. Yeah,
Yeah,
and
but
I'm with
just
you.
listening to Aaron Taylor Johnson, just I protest.
Actually, while we're on that subject of of Harding, when he passes on, I mean, he very clearly just goes completely around the twist because yeah, his entire world just gets completely destroyed. Um, the one thing that did leave me a bit, was his initial death. I mean, I'm assuming he just engaged in full-blown necromantic uh
Yep.
revelries. I'm pretty sure he just fucked the corpse and just got the plague and just died right then and there. But I'm like,
Yeah. I did not
I
catch it the first time around, and then I saw a TikTok on it and said, look at the position of her legs. So the second time around, I was like, oh my gosh. Yeah.
oh,
Yeah.
okay. Okay. All right, now I really do need to go see it again.
Hmm.
Okay. God damn. Uh
Yeah,
in
just these
fact,
little
actually,
things that I love seeing the
yeah.
second time around that I missed.
Okay. Oh no, I definitely missed that. But I knew he was basically gonna kick it one way or another, but admittedly, Necromantic basically ruined me for any other. No, no, no. If there's a movie I want to see your reaction to, watch Necromantic.
Okay.
No, there's a movie I would pay to watch your reaction to watch Necromantic.
Okay, I may need to see about doing a reaction video to that one.
Oh no, I guarantee you will get so many hits when you watch your neck. Yeah.
Oh man.
God. Robert Eggers, what are you doing to us? You keep
I
making us talk.
know.
What are you doing to us?
I mean, the dude said he couldn't resist her, so yeah.
Now I'm going to confess something. Despite everything that we are praising about this film, this is not going to probably. I'm going to regret to say this. This won't probably enter my. As I record this, I haven't recorded my big year-end wrap-up kind of thing, but this will not enter my top 10, unfortunately.
Oh wow. Okay.
It really won't. Because because this is in remake terms, this does actually follow perfectly the narrative progression of the original film. And I suppose there was a level of predictability. I was like, okay, this is going to happen. This is going to happen. This is going to happen. So I don't know if I was 100% emotionally invested in this by comparison because they did such a good job abiding by the story. And it is a really good adaptation of the Dracula story.
Mhm.
And I think, but because of that, it generated a bit of a disconnect in me where I wasn't as 100% emotionally invested. Like, I wasn't, like, a lot of times when I'm really emotionally invested in something, I'll cry. And I'll tell you now, there have been there are some horror movies that made me cry. If you listen to my Saw episodes, Saw 10 made me cry.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. So, but this one, because this is a very good adaptation of Dracula, but it is an adaptation of Dracula, and I know the story of Dracula. It follows those beats really, really well. And Lord knows I'm definitely going to find myself watching this over even over Coppola's Dracula
Okay.
any day. I don't know if I found myself as invested in this one as I was in, or I think I may just very well be not invested in the Dracula story on the whole because I know it too well.
Yeah, you
Fuck,
know how it
even
ends.
Mel Brooks even told the story well. I'm still
Yeah,
going to maintain Dracula Dead and Loving It is underrated as shit.
this is true. Yeah,
Yes,
because
this
I'm
is true.
sitting there and I'm like, okay, so even though I don't know a whole lot about Nosferatu, I know how it ends. So I'm sitting there all hopeful. I'm like, wait, what am I doing? I know how it ends.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah, but I think the reason why this really works as a remake is the fact that Robert Eggers, it's not so much that he does things to subvert expectations. I think he enriches what is already there to flesh it out a bit more.
Mhm.
So in the original film, it does not really hit home that uh, Ellen does anything. It doesn't even hit home the idea that Ellen has anything resembling autonomy. So the one thing I will give, and this is why Lily Rose Depp just completely slays it in this goddamn movie, is that they really do a great job giving her an identity and giving her an arc to the point that it makes the resolution of the film work so damn well because it hits home that this is personal, that this is something that she is doing for her because she knows what's at stake. And the idea that she's willing to sacrifice herself,
Mhm.
that I think is a big deal. And this is where I think the movie does succeed, is the fact that Eggers does a great job enriching what is already there, which is, to me, I think is the purpose of a good remake, is that you take what's there and you add elements of your own to beef it up and make it better. So in that respect, I will say this is a superior remake, and I'm going to find myself watching this more often than I watch Murnau's original. In that respect, particularly because it does a great job enriching these characters who I do care about. I'm just not as I'm just not as invigorated by it because again, I know this story.
We know the
So if
outcome.
that makes sense.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So but on your side, like you said, you don't have as much at stake with the original film. So from your perspective, where did you land?
I was, but it's kind of like, when you watch the Titanic, it's going to sink, So, I mean, that's
Good
kind of how
metaphor.
I
Good
felt. You know
metaphor.
what I mean? I was like, okay, I'm all hopeful, but I'm like, oh, well, I know how this is going to end. But, I really got into it. But yeah, it is.
Yeah.
I guess it is kind of comparing it to like watching the Titanic. You do get into it, but you know how it's going to end. It's the same. It's the same. So I
Yeah.
guess it doesn't hit as hard when you know what's going to happen.
Yeah. I think it's the big thing. I mean, it's just because if you were well versed not just in F.W. Murnau's original, but also just Dracula on the whole, if like you were someone who really knows Dracula, this is not going to blow your skirt up in terms of spontaneity. I mean, you're going to know where the story is going to go,
Exactly. Yeah.
but I can't bring myself to ever say that that's bad because what Robert Eggers brings to this is just a wonderful, really well. It's the kind of idea like when you hear someone tell a joke and you hear that joke for the first time, but then somewhere down the line you hear someone tell the same joke, but they tell it in their way,
Hmm.
and you find yourself actually liking the way they told that same joke.
Yeah. Or knowing what's going to happen. So you're like thinking, okay, this is where this is going to happen. All right. What is Robert Eggers going to do with
Yeah,
how is he going to handle this that's coming up? Yeah.
precisely. And I think that's where the success of Nosferatu is just
Hmm.
I'm the part of me going like, okay, I know. And even more so, it's not just about Eggers. It's the fact that even Herzog did his own take on it. And he did some wonderful things on it as well. So it makes me go, okay, well, what is Eggers going to do that these people aren't, did before? What is he going to do on his own terms?
Hmm.
And and I think because of that, that's where the success of this is that Eggers did his own thing. And never once was I going like, oh, he's just aping what they did, or no, he's like doing entirely his own thing on this. And even more so, he beefed up elements that probably were only alluded to in the other films. Especially, I think the major success to me was the way he emphasized the plague of Count Orlok. Just the idea that when Orlok arrives, just all hell breaks loose,
Hmm.
even beyond the rats. And I even like how a lot of times it's not even Orlok in the room with them, it's the rats like on top of someone, you know,
Oh,
doing this. And it's like,
yeah.
I love the idea that when Orlok arrives, it's just a pestilence on this town,
Yeah.
and that's just, I think that does the job. And I think, and because of the idea of, and because they really lean hard into that idea, it makes Count Orlok a much more um, threatening character because you see the expanse of his power. And so when you get that amazing, even though you saw it in the trailer, but when you see like the beginning of that shot where the shadow of his hand looming
Shadow.
over the town, I'm like, that's a beautiful like visual representation of how his evil is affecting this city. And I think it's astounding. And I think Eggers did a beautiful job elucidating that point in a way that I think is accessible in ways that a lot of people who may watch the original film may be a bit distant from. Because, yeah, I mean, I don't know if you've ever if you go back and watch like a silent film from that time period, it is a chore to watch. It's a chore to
Mhm.
watch. I mean, I love the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari as much as Nicolas Cage does, but but even then, I will say it took me effort to sit down and watch that thing.
Yeah.
So yeah. So I feel like I suppose if there's a way we can bring it all together, but I think the core of Nosferatu is the fact that Eggers took something took something familiar and was able to reshape it in a way that makes it that the magic that worked for him, he was able to channel it and make it a way that teaches modern audiences why it's so terrifying to begin with, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Did you find any parallels in some of his, like in Nosferatu to some of his movies? Like the part where, was it Emma? Yeah, it was Emma,
Ellen,
Anna Harding. When she had the rats on her, I just thought
mm,
about this. Sorry to kind of get us off course here. When she had the
that's
rats
fine.
on her, it reminded
We have a
me
course.
of reminded me of the mom on The Witch when the crows were like eating at her chest.
Oh,
That to me, that
yeah.
shot was so similar to that.
Yeah.
Do you remember
Yeah.
that? Yeah.
I can kind of see
And
that.
yeah, that reminded me of that. And also, like with Ellen, remember when they were trying to, I guess, I don't know if they were exorcising the brother, the son on the witch. That
Mm.
to me was very like his moans and all that, that reminded me of Ellen, of Ellen and when she
Yeah,
would, yeah,
there was a little part of me going
like the
thinking, well,
similarities
I
in
was
that.
thinking parallels. I was thinking
Yeah.
parallels. You are
Hmm.
right. But fortunately, I think this is where context saves the day because you got to think about like what leads to these moments. And I was okay with that because unfortunately, one thing with horror is that you're going to run into similar incidences, but of different approaches. I mean, in the
Hmm.
case of the witch, it's the case of a witch playing running amok on this family and just seeing this poor kid just, lose his mind. But simultaneously, but on the other side, you got this vampire who's puppeteer, doing the puppeteering
Right,
thing,
right. Hmm.
playing everybody. So, you know, I suppose this is just a case of like apples and oranges, different contexts, different situations. But unfortunately, the result leads to similar scenes. So
Hmm. Yeah.
I did think that, but ultimately I was like, yeah, but in the end, this still works because I'm invested in the story in a point where it still works. Like this is still working on its own terms. I mean,
Right.
yeah, there is that one trapping when it comes to different filmmakers where you'll think like, okay, they're falling back on their old tactics, like the things that we know. Like, sorry, I keep going back to Wes Anderson, but
Oh, that's
there's so
okay.
many things about Wes Anderson that if you watch a lot of his work, you're like going, okay, I know what he's going to do there. I know what he's going to do
Hmm.
there because I know this is how he works. But ultimately, it's like, but these are the things that define them and make them unique as a filmmaker. So, and only they do it. So it's like, how can I begrudge that?
Oh no. And then that's why we love them. To me
Exactly.
anyway. Yeah.
Exactly. So even though I wasn't as like electrified by Nosferatu as I know a lot of people are, which I'm very happy for, so much so that people are losing their shit about a popcorn bucket. Um,
I bought that popcorn bucket.
you lucky,
Yeah. Well, you know
lucky.
what? But see, listen, I live in like this county that I'm honestly surprised there were more people watching Nosferatu there. There's a lot. Yeah, there's a lot of, yeah, this is the kind of place that people kind of side eye you a little bit for being a horror fan. So I lucked out going to the movie theater. The Nosferatu
Yeah.
buckets were there. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh man. No, the beautiful thing about that popcorn bucket is like even outside of Nosferatu, that's a cool looking popcorn bucket that I just want to have around my house in general.
Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty awesome. And the fact that
Yeah.
it's like a tin like material, it's not plastic.
Yeah.
So that's really cool.
Did this get any kind of awards consideration?
I have not seen anything
Oh,
about that, but it should, I feel
it
like, on the
I mean,
performances.
I think above all else, production design. Production design by let me see, I got that. Production design by Robin Carolon. I think really should get it. And I will say they did reutilize a lot of regional locations. Let me see.
Oh, okay.
The interior castle scenes were actually filmed at the Perenstein Castle at the Czech Republic, and the exteriors of Orlok Castle were the Corvin Castle, a Romanian castle located in Transylvania. So they actually like
Went there.
regionally like were in Transylvania. Oh, that's another major thing in terms of Eggers' profinity towards authenticity. Early in the film, when Thomas, like before he arrives at Orlok's castle, lands on a Romanian village. I think it's Romanian. But he actually, runs into sorry, I don't know what the proper term is, but gypsies.
Romani, I think I looked it up.
Romani.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Romani. Yeah.
Yeah. But in the
But
movie they call them
they use the
gypsies.
term
But
gypsies. Mhm.
yeah. Again, as a testament, I believe he even made sure to cast authentically in terms of
Oh,
that. But yeah,
and they all have mustaches.
yeah. So again, that's when I saw that mustache, I was like thinking, I can't be mad at it just because it feels right, because again of the region where it's taking place. But actually, that's another signature of Eggers is that he is really good with editing, using editing to boost like unease, because there's a moment where Thomas early in the film eavesdrops on a moment where they're executing a vampire in the grave, and he films it in a way that's still like that's quick and kinetic. And just when the freaking iron stake goes into the thing's heart and it spews blood, and then cut to Thomas in the bed, seeing there's mud on his feet, I was like, I love that in the midst of the fact that this is still a so slow burn horror film, there's moments where Eggers uses editing to his benefit to really make a moment visceral.
And it just like so quick like that. And then he wakes up and the mud's on his shoes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
freaking great. Yeah, freaking amazing moment. But there's little things like that kind of littered all throughout the movie. Just kind of in a way, it's kind of like Eggers saying, like, listen, we know you, I know you know where this is going. So
Mhm.
I'm just going to cut it in a way that toys with that and plays with it. And even more so, even plays with your expectations to make you think, am I going to go there? Am I going to go there? Fuck you. Yes, I went there.
I'm going to go there.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm going to go there. I'm going to kill these two little cherubic kids. And even more so, I'm going to see you. I'm going to have Count Orlok just dangling those little bitches.
Yeah. And you're going to see it, damn it.
Yeah,
This
you're
is
going to
no
see
off
it.
screen. Yeah.
Yeah,
Which
no off
which
screening to
Mercy
death
and
in this
Jonas
thing.
were off screen. So yeah, he's moving up.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's a topic in and of itself, just the whole idea of off screening to death. It's like there's an art to off screening to death.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a way you got to do that and still have the impact. It's like if you're going to do it in a way that when you do find out they're dead, it actually like has a legit impact. So, oh man, so that's work. So, all right, so any final thoughts on Nosferatu before we wrap up?
Uh, Not really. I mean, I loved it. I can see where some people, like I've seen comments about people falling asleep and being bored. Like I can see that it's not for everyone. Like
Hmm.
if you're not a Robert Eggers fan, like I'm just sitting there taking the whole thing in the whole time.
Yeah.
So it's definitely not, I guess I would say this is not a movie for just anyone.
I'm not gonna say that I'm not gonna be that person that when people say they're bored by a film, it's like, listen, one or two things are gonna happen here. You're gonna watch it again down the line, and you're gonna realize, holy shit, this is an amazing film, or that you're just gonna realize that the movie runs at a rhythm that's just not copacetic with the type of films you enjoy.
Mhm.
That doesn't mean that this film is a bad film. It just means that it doesn't run at your tempo.
Right.
That's fine. And like I said before, I 100% appreciate the artistry, the fact that there's like I'm never gonna say this film is half-assed. And Robert Eggers passionately, there is passion in every single frame of this film. It's just for myself, for every other horror film I've seen this year, and for a lot of the ones that made the cut for my top 10. It's just that so many of those did things that tickled me in ways that worked better over what this one does. But that's not to take away from the fact that this is still an incredibly well-made film, and I will buy this when it comes out on Blu-ray, and I will probably watch it more often than I watch the original because Robert Eggers did something that is accessible to me as a fan of horror. And that's my take. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So to actually one thing we do now, have you watched anything outside of Nosferatu? Have you watched anything new or old for the first time that you'd like to share us with?
I've just been sitting here like during my break in a haze of just like eating and watching reruns of White Lotus on HBO and trashy stuff. So no, I
Ooh,
really I have such a long watch list. I need to watch some of the movies that I've been meaning to watch. The Lighthouse.
yeah,
Instead of like
Lighthouse.
settling into my trashy comfort shows.
Well, I could definitely help you. I did run into I did watch a couple that I definitely feel deserve a load of attention. Firstly, one that for myself who deals with depression, anxiety, and even the occasional thoughts of self-harm. One film I watched, which I thought was incredibly beautiful, and I lament that I did not watch this before I did my episode on vampires. An incredible French film called Humanist Vampire Seeking Consenting Suicidal Person.
I heard about that one. Okay.
That is the title, but that film, I would definitely say that's a film to watch in the same breath as Only Love is Left Alive and even Let the Right One In. It
Okay.
is incredibly beautiful. It is very poignant and even a bit funny. The plot of the film involves a vampire who is not stoked by the notion of killing in order to get blood. So, but unfortunately, she's being cut off by her family saying, listen, we're not going to keep providing blood for you. So she has to break out on her own. So it's either kill or try to find some other means. Well, she ends up meeting a kid who is suicidal and she takes it upon herself to, but they end up forming this wonderful bond between each other. And you see this kind of, in a way, it's kind of like before sunset, sunrise, moon before midnight kind of thing, where you see these two when they meet going through the night trying to figure out how to make this work, just how to make this arrangement work between them. And I was really just affected by this. And it really hits home the idea that two people who deal with depression on two different fronts, that the best way to cope and the best way to deal with it and the best way to survive is really together. Just find people who are like you and just find ways to survive together. And it's
Okay,
just,
I'm already tearing up here.
yeah,
That
it's
sounds
beautiful. It's
like
so
a
well done.
beautiful. Yes.
It's so well done. And another one I just watched, and as I think this may very well be the final horror film I watch for 2024, because again, we're recording before it ends. I just watched Night Bitch.
How was it?
Oh my God. Well, first off, it's not as horror as you think, but there is still body horror elements to the film.
Okay.
This film, funny enough, I would say it's a pure yin and yang with Huesera the Bone Woman because both of them
Yes. Yes.
yeah, because
Okay.
both of them tackle very similar themes, specifically about someone who wasn't ready to become a parent and whether or not they were wanted to be a parent at all. Where Huesera is most definitely this is someone who never wanted to be a parent. Night Bitch talks about a woman who had the kid, but never realized until after having the kid that they didn't want this. And
Mm.
but they go about it in a way that's actually very affirming. It's the idea that just because you have a kid, you don't, that the things you thought you gave up, you don't actually have to give up. You just have to figure out a way to, you have to figure out a way. So it's very sweet. It's very positive, but simultaneously there are still body horror elements to the film. There are wonderful
Okay.
body horror and Amy Adams.
I love
I would
her.
love to I would love to find out if she did not perform with any kind of makeup on this, and even love to know if she even gained weight for it, because she gives it everything. She gives her like
Okay.
she gives it body and soul to this movie, and she delivers 100%. And all the moments where I will say she starts acting like a dog are kind of wonderful. Are kind of
Yeah.
wonderful. So,
Okay.
it's a film I was really delighted by, 100%. And I will, very rarely I'll say it, but but this is one of those ones I legitimately did not know which way it was going. I didn't, I mean, my mind was going to Huesera, so I was like thinking, oh, she's going to bail on their ass, like at one point. But it ends up resolving in a way I was not expecting, and it was very sweet. And for myself, being a whore for a Phantom of the Paradise and Shock Treatment, Jessica Harper's in it, so that's another win. So
What?
yes.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Okay. Just on that, I'll have to watch it.
and Suspiria, by the way. So yeah.
Yes. Yes. Oh
I'm
my
sorry.
gosh.
I'm sorry, horror fans, but I'm a Shock Treatment fan through and through. I sometimes even think it's better than Rocky Horror. But
Okay. So have you seen Baby Girl? Speaking of things that we just watched.
I have not. I have not. I've seen the trailers for it, so um,
Yeah.
I was not sure what to make of it, but I know. Have you seen it?
I saw it last night.
What? All right. I mean,
Uh, I mean,
huh?
it was interesting, but the whole time I'm like, come on, girl. You're like a, I don't know, CEO, whatever the hell she was. I'm like, why are you okay? Minor spoiler alert. Why are you licking milk from a saucer on the floor? He should be the one licking milk from a saucer on the floor for you.
What?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
No.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, is this
It
basically
was
50 Shades of Grey
interesting.
with better writing?
I don't know about better writing, but it was, yeah.
Anything's better writing than 50 Shades of Grey.
The 50 Shades. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Oh, dear God.
Yeah. So apparently women are swooning over this guy, and I don't get it. Oh yeah, and then there's a scene with him. Yeah, the little dance. You're gonna see TikTok edits of this guy dancing to Father Figure by George Michael.
Oh, God.
Yeah. So yeah.
I don't know if I'm ready for that. Oh, dear God. Okay.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
again,
it's
as
it's
so
it's
as we record
interesting.
so as we record this, again, 2025 hasn't started yet. So, what do you look forward to in 2025?
Oh my gosh, I don't even know what's coming in 2025 because
Well,
I'm
I mean, we
drawing a
did allude
blank.
to one. I mean, there's 28 years later. I know that's like,
Definitely 28 years later. Oh,
yeah.
oh, there's one.
Well,
Oh my
I know
gosh.
yeah, I'm looking forward to the monkey, actually.
Yes, I just saw a
Yeah,
trailer for it. It looked really good. Did you see the trailer for that at the movies, at the movie
I
theater?
did. I'm just like, that looks so darkly twisted that I'm excited for it. It looks funny, which I wasn't expecting.
Yes, when the guy that was the, I don't know if he was a priest, but he had the collar thing and he was going in front of the congregation and he's like, holy fuck, or he says something
Yeah.
to that effect.
Well, again, and actually, it's good that we're talking about it because Osgood Perkins directed it, and it's just the fact
I
that,
love the dude. Yeah.
and it's just the fact that this is what he's following it up with, and I'm like, if this is going to be as darkly twisted and comedic as the trailer's promising it to be, you are going to cement yourself as a new force to be reckoned with, because it shows that you are going to do movies. Because I will say, Blackcoat's Daughter is nothing like Longlegs, and
I
if
love Black Coat's Daughter
Blackcoat's Daughter is a wonderful,
so much.
but
Yeah.
but if the monkey is going to be such a aesthetically different kind of film versus this, I can't wait. I cannot wait to see what you keep doing, because anytime a filmmaker gets a chance to establish himself and show versatility, I'm so there for. So that's my big one.
There is one. I don't know if you saw the trailer. Is it called Companion with Sophie Thatcher?
Yes. Oh my
Yes,
God. I'm
that.
so thrilled for that. I'm
Yes.
name dropping as I tend to do on the podcast, but I just like a couple months ago I met Jack Quaid, at Spookala. And the thing I told him was like, listen, I cannot wait to see Companion. I saw the trailer and he was first off, he was excited that I wanted to talk to him about it. And he's like, oh, I had so much fun making that movie. It was like and he actually says like one of his favorite movies he's ever made. So I can't,
Okay.
yeah. So first off, Jack Quaid, if you ever get a chance to meet him, Jack Quaid is adorable. Jack
Okay.
Quaid's freaking adorable. But
And Sophie Thatcher,
yeah,
she's freaking amazing in Heretic. And then have you seen
the
Yellow
Boogeyman.
Jackets?
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, I haven't watched Yellow Jackets yet. It's on my Netflix,
Oh
but
man,
the Boogeyman,
she's
holy
great.
crap, she was amazing in the
Yes,
Boogeyman.
yes, I
She
love
was so good in
her.
the Boogeyman.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
I'm so looking forward to that.
even the brief little bit she was in Maxine, I was like, oh, Sophie Thatcher.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So no, I can't wait to see more of Sophie Thatcher. So to see her with Jack Quaid doing horror just makes me all kinds of happy. So
Okay, but how amazing was her performance on Heretic
yeah,
when Hugh Grant was talking about her father and how he died? Just like her face. I love her.
yeah,
She's so freaking
she's amazing.
amazing. Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, for as much dread as I have for the years to come, I mean, the one thing, actually, Stuart Gordon said this best. He said that the worse the times, the better the horror films.
Okay.
And he came to his heyday during the 80s, during like, Reagan's time. So, um, I think it's safe to say I have a feeling that the years to come, we're going to get some really fucking great horror in the
I
times to
agree.
come.
I agree.
So, and I think 2025 is going to have some good shit. So,
Yeah, like
yeah.
what's the other one? Death of a Unicorn.
Oh, dear God. Oh, dear God. I cannot wait for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
That would tick my boxes in ways I wasn't expecting. That trailer, I was like so stoked. I was like, yes, killer
Yes.
unicorn for the win, bitch.
Yeah. And
All
he's like,
right.
I think I need to change out of my swim shorts for this moment.
Oh no,
I
I think
love
I
that.
need my swim shorts to hide some things. Um,
Yeah.
anyway, all right. So with that, so as internet etiquette, where can people find you social media wise?
You can find me on Instagram and TikTok at Spooky Scary Sparkle.
All right. All right. And for everyone else, if you want to know where to find us, and actually, I would implore you to find us on other means, just in case things go tits up with TikTok. So yeah, in the meantime, if you wish to delve into the dark bowels of human imagination, ask yourself the simple question, what's in the podcast? Thank you for joining us on this edition of What's in the Podcast. If you find yourself hungry for more deep cuts into the gloriously morbid and macabre, you can also find us on TikTok, Blue Sky, and YouTube at Narcotic Casserole. You can also follow us on Instagram at Narcotic Casserole 25. Follow us if you dare. And welcome to another event. Bad start. Okay. Wow, that's the first time I've ever botched the start. I blame you. All right. All right.